Hey, good evening or afternoon, whenever you're listening to this. This is our Monday, Sunday follow up, and I'm Aaron. This is Sarah, and it's Tuesday. Sorry, we're catching up on the sermon. We're doing a new series called Relationship Grit, with the idea of what does it take to have healthy relationships all around. And we start in Ephesians 5. We're actually staying in Ephesians 5 for the whole series, and you got a handful of questions for us tonight.
I sure do. Well, I must say that I personally loved the Jack in the Box illustration. Just today I was talking about, I'm letting someone wind me up. How did you come up with that?
Um, Actually, I spent all week just thinking about what happens is that we're talking about self-destructive behaviors in relationships, and I really felt like what happens is that we just get so wound up that again eventually we just kind of unload, we blow up on someone. And so then the question was, all right, how do I help people grasp onto this with a memorable illustration? So I went through several different ones, but the Jack in the Box for me really was one of those where I thought this is going to work. In fact, it was funny on Sunday as I'm watching. I'm doing the thing where you're turning it and like the music. You did such a good job. You want to do it again? Yeah, but I'm doing that, and you can literally see people like tensing up,
Yes,
like
feel
you
the
just
anxiety.
there's like, oh, it's going to happen anytime soon.
Yes.
In fact, it's a great illustration because if you're in a close friendship with someone, or you're married to someone, or you're dating someone and you know them well, like you can actually see it happening to them. You're like, you're getting wound up, and like sometimes it's best not to call it out. It's like, okay, I'm gonna head for cover because you're getting wound up.
You
And
just called me out similarly tonight. Same thing. Hey, I feel like you're getting really irritated. Like, oh, and I wasn't noticing it in myself, but you know me well enough to see my body language. And once you said it, I was like, okay,
yeah,
I'll let it go.
and it happens to all of us. I mean, it happens to me, it happens to you, and everybody. And so again, the question then is how do we prevent these self-destructive behaviors in our relationship?
So how does what we feel inside trigger the poor behaviors that then self-destruct the relationship?
Yes, well, so here's what happens. Like the Jack in the Box, our insides, we process the feelings, and again, those aren't things that are tangible, they're not material. We can't say, hey, here's 3 ounces of anger, or here's 2 cups of frustration. But what happens is that we have a certain threshold on the inside that we can process emotions, and especially negative emotions. And what happens is eventually that gets too full, or again we just get wound too tight, and then we explode. So what we need to do then is identify what are our triggers and identify what's going on. Again, in counseling, they call this the ability to self-differentiate and say, here's what I'm feeling, here's what's really going on, here's how I should respond or how I should react. And so one of the first steps in this is like, hey, what are your triggers?
Or who are your
Or
triggers?
it could be a who. Like anytime you interact with this person, you just which we both understand. And we have that. Like you and I are both aware that one of them for me is when people get whiny or start making excuses, and I'm like, that doesn't work for me. It just there's buttons all over, and I'm like, no. Or when people quit. Again, it just drives me up. I'm like, you can't just quit. Like that's against
Doesn't bother me at
it's
all.
against laws, right? Like you can't just quit. And so again, I know that some of those are my triggers, and I know certain like whiny tones are a trigger for me. And so one of the things that I do, and you've called me out on this a few times and helped me like identify this, that you're tap dancing on my trigger buttons, and I need to take some steps back. I need to self-differentiate. And again, you have different values than I do, and I'm not saying you, but like whoever we're working with has different values than I do.
It might be better to approach it when you're not getting wound up.
Right.
Wait until you're on the other side of it.
Absolutely. Well, again, Paul says in Ephesians 5 is he says, hey, what happens to some degree is that we get wound up, and then we produce poor behaviors. And he identifies some of those poor behaviors. He says rage, anger, brawling, slander, malice, which again, I love the word malice. I don't use it enough, but the idea of you just want evil to happen to somebody else. But basically, what happens, again, we get wound up, and then I have these feelings and desires, and I act this way, and then it self-destructs a relationship. A great example is someone says something I don't like on social media, or responds to a post that I make on social media, and again, I type back a response, and again, it's in rage or anger or malice towards them or
And knowing other
towards
people
somebody
are
else.
seeing it, so that just kind of adds fuel
Right.
to, yeah.
Right. And again, it
Destructive.
destructs that relationship. It causes destructive behavior in other relationships, and
And people are watching
Right,
the way we handle conflict.
right. And you and I know. I mean, we follow a few friends of ours that were like, "What are they thinking? Like, what do they think? Like,
People see this.
They really think Target's caring what they're saying about the line at Target? No, but everybody else is like, that person's got a short fuse. Like, don't mess with them. And so, again, even when we're not venting towards a person specifically, that person may be watching how we act and may be going, "Hey, that's a destructive relationship. I don't want to be part of it."
And you talking about the Jack in the Box, you're letting someone else have so much control when you allow their winding to let you get amped up. And you always say love has boundaries, and we have to have those healthy boundaries with people that might lead us down that path of destruction. So how do I heal what's inside that might also be causing destruction?
Yeah, so when we're healthy spiritually, emotionally, and physically, again, all three of those come together, we have what I can say is like a longer measure. There's a lot more I can take in, a lot more I can handle, a lot more I can deal with. When we're not healthy in those three areas, my measure is shorter. And so there's I have a much shorter fuse.
Same as a temper.
Yeah, well, if it's a temper maybe, but again, temper usually means I'm going to react in anger, and so I don't like to use the word temper because it's a measure, because it may just be that I just melt down. Like my reaction may not be anger. I know people who, again, whatever emotional threshold you cross for them, and suddenly they just lose it, and you're sitting there like, I have no idea what happened. Or again, some people just start crying, or some people they just
Retreat.
abandon the situation. Yeah, they just retreat. So it may not be anger, but again, there's a measure. And again, a way to think about this is that all of us have a longer measure when we're not hungry. When we're hungry, all of us, we have a shorter measure.
You're talking about me, aren't you?
You're right. Yes. No. So the first thing we got to do is step one, as with any kind of healing or recovery process, is identify what's going on inside. In a sense, what's the problem? What am I feeling? And what we can do is probably identify certain patterns. Maybe it's a certain pattern with a person, or a place, or a reaction. We are all creatures of habit and pattern. So every time I'm around this person, every time they say this, I feel this inside. And this is where it's so important for us to be mature enough to identify what I'm feeling. And you and I work with a lot of kids who are young enough that they're like, I don't know, I'm not sure if I'm angry, or, I'm not sure what. In fact, you and I work with some adults that we go, I'm not sure why they're processing this the way they are, and they're not processing it. So again, what's going on inside? Is it anger? Is it fear? Is it shame? Is it guilt? Is it a sense of loneliness? Is it, what's the feeling that you have inside? Is so important. Again, this isn't new. Any recovery process starts with saying, what's going on? Then admit I need help. I feel anger, and I don't know why I need help. I feel shame. I don't know why I need help. I feel helpless, and I don't know why I need help. I feel like I'm a prisoner, and I don't know why I need help. So what's going on inside? What do we feel? The second thing would be, why am I feeling this? This is tricky, because often why you're feeling that is not because of the immediate situation.
The way you're acting is a symptom of something different than
Right. Or again, not even acting yet. We're not even out to the outward. It's
feeling.
right. I'm feeling this, but it's really because of stuff way back here. A great one is shame. Someone invites you to be part of this. Again, often one we hear is someone wants me to help do this for church. I feel shame. What if they know that this is in my past? Okay, and so I feel shame. I don't want to. I say no. I say no. I say no. I say no. And the person, we finally get them to calm down. It's like, why? Why do you say no? And they're going, I don't know. I just don't want to be in front of people. You're in front of people at work. You're in front of people here. That's really not what's going on. And well, I feel shame. Well, why do you feel shame? Well, it's because of this past that I feel like still has control over me. So that's an example of, again, it's not an immediate situation that's caused the shame. And so this is where we got to do a little homework. And this is often where we need people around us to love us and to listen to us, and even counselors who say, I'll work through this with you, who are smart enough to go, that's not really what's going on.
Yeah, that's not the origin of this feeling.
I'm calling BS on that. That's not really what's happening right here, right?
Yeah.
And then the third step would be, once we identify what's going on and why it's going on, adequate steps towards recovery. I know that's so much more vague than somebody wants, and if you're asking the question, how do I heal? Me saying, hey, identify what's going on, why it's going on, and then move towards healing doesn't really make you feel better in the sense that you're like, hey, I'd rather have a step-by-step manual, but it's part of the ambiguousness of the response is because I don't know what's going on. I might be able to sit down and help you identify, but that's what a good counselor does. Or even a wise friend is like, hey, here's some of the steps that I see or that I've walked through or that I've been through. Again, this is how I've dealt with my anger. And again, anger is an easy one because there's numerous books out on how to handle anger. By the way, Gary Chapman writes a pretty good one. And so again, if anger's it, go pick up a book and start working through the steps. If it's shame, all right, maybe that's just a matter of I need to confess what's going on and what I feel shame about. If it's loneliness, then again, why do you feel lonely? You can be surrounded by people, and so again, the steps towards healing are important, but at all times, it starts with inviting God to heal that, inviting the Holy Spirit to do a work of healing, because we're never on our own, right? We have God who's saying, I am the great physician. I'm the healer of all things.
Absolutely.
Again, I know you really love the Jack in the Box thing. What's something else you took away from the message that you went, that's helpful for me?
I did watch the whole thing. Give me some highlights. Help me remember.
Hurting my feelings.
Relationships.
Oh, yeah, self-destructive relationships. Here's my behaviors that cause self-destructive.
Letting people wind you up. That was huge for me. Like I said.
Do you ever have that trouble at work? Does anybody wind you up?
I work with 700 children and then also some adults.
I was going to say, normally it's not the children that I hear the stories from. It's, do you know? And I'm like, oh my.
Yeah. I like I showed it to my staff before the school year started, a little thing you can find on YouTube about staying above the line. But just that as humans, it's so easy for us to be pulled to a negative place that we're surrounded by more negativity, and it's so easy for us to allow others to influence our emotions and our feelings and take us down a dark path. And so that whole concept just really resonates with me, and you have to be, I feel, so intentional about staying positive and staying in control of your reactions. Your feelings, you always say, it's not wrong to feel this way. It's okay to feel this way. It's then how do we react to how we're feeling and what's a healthy way to handle that. And I think it's great that you addressed that and touched on that in this sermon.
And again, let me just emphasize as we close here, often our hurt stems from the fact that we are looking for someone on earth to meet a need only God can meet.
Amen.
And again, that loneliness, that I don't feel loved, I don't feel valued, I don't feel, and again, all those negative things we dwell in, are really us saying, I'm not letting God meet that need. I'm looking for it here.
And wanting people to feel that
Right.
causes us to feel disappointment in people and anger at people, and it hurts our relationships because we're not designed to be that for one another.
Right, right.
Hard as we may try to treat each other like Jesus, we have to have that authentic relationship with Jesus to really have those needs met. And humans, they're just not cut out for it.
Right, right. And a way to see that really easily that you and I talk about all the time is, here's the young teenage girl who may be struggling with a father figure at home or a broken home and or maybe a completely healthy home for that matter, but they're looking for a boy to help them feel valued, to help them feel pretty, to help them feel loved, to help them feel like, hey, I'm not incomplete. Mm-hmm. And you and I sit there and we're watching, again, someone self-destruct with their behaviors and ultimately self-destruct not only just with that boy, but again, their friends are going, I don't want to hang out with you because you're always focused on.
Or they stop hanging out with their friend because they're all wrapped up in this boy.
Right. And again, I wish this was just about teenage girls, but we all do it in different ways. And again, ultimately, you and I always say, I just want to sit that girl down and say, only God can meet this need. And part of that is growing up and maturing enough that you're searching for God and then allowing Him to meet it, because He's not always going to meet it how you want, right? Sometimes God's meeting our need of you're no longer lonely is us learning to be in a spirit of prayer enough that we go, I've been in communion with God. This is so frustrating. Often the way God gets us there is He puts us through these amazing times of loneliness to say, I'll teach you to rely upon me. Because why? Because God values us enough that He's willing to let us endure broken hearts so that we depend only on Him.
Absolutely. I always heard people say, you're not ready to find your best mate until you're fine on your own. And I got married shortly out of high school and just never really experienced that I'm on my own kind of situation until after my divorce. And it definitely took time and loneliness and mistakes before I reached the point where, okay, I am okay on my own because I'm not alone. I'm never alone. And it doesn't take having a partner beside me to be fulfilled and to be my best self. But it definitely helps.
All right. Anything else? All right. Well, thank you for joining us tonight, and we pray God's blessing upon you. We got 2 more messages in our relationship grid. We're in Ephesians 5.
Are they going to be as good as that one was?
Yeah. So I'm really excited about this Sunday's message because it's the Ephesians 5 passages that we've abused and misused, where wives submit to your husbands. And then husbands submit to Christ. And again, we've abused this so much that
people balk at the word,
right.
For sure.
And so we're going to tackle it because we're not afraid to. You know full well I'm never afraid to tackle controversial subjects. But again, once people actually see this, how it is meant to be within the context, and even the word submit, what that actually means, I think it'll help us go, hey, this is actually a pretty amazing passage.
Beautiful thing when it's done the way God intended.
Yeah, so you don't want to miss that. And that'll be coming this Sunday. You can join us online. And check us out at www.faith.
Are we only online?
What?
Are we only online on Sunday?
No, you could be live.
Come in person.
Sorry, yeah.
9:30 and
9:30 in Fairborn, 11 o'clock in Xenia. I just messed up the website now. You know how long it takes me to get that figured out?
All right, go. You got it.
www.faithignited.info.
You only did 2 W's.
Oh, well, they'll catch it. All right, well, thanks for joining us, guys. Have a great night. Bye.
Bye.